Modern fitness culture is dominated and shaped by specialists. When we picture the world's best athletes or the most physically capable humans, our minds immediately jump to extremes. It's the most competitive field sport athletes, the largest, most freakishly symmetrical bodybuilders, Olympic weightlifters chasing perfect technique, powerlifters living and dying by their totals, marathon runners pursuing superhuman sub 2 hour times. Physical mastery today is not embodied by the most useful or the most adaptable individual, but by the one who can outcompete others in a single physical pursuit. Even the word athlete has been warped by this phenomenon. An athlete is not viewed as someone who's strong, capable, resilient, or broadly athletic. An athlete is someone who competes in a sport, someone in a club, a league, an organization, chasing rankings, not physical capacity. Most of the world, however, are not professionals. Most people are not getting paid to train, they are not competing on the world stage, and they are not structuring their entire lifestyle around singular performance. But the layman, or the recreational athlete, if you will, still falls under the impression that to become as capable as possible, they should train like the pros. Not in volume or intensity, they know they die, but in theory, in programming, in structure and style. And this is where things fall apart for them, because the layman does not have the recovery of the professional or the specialist. They do not have their schedule, they do not have the lifestyle, and they do not have the support system. And they may also not have the genetic inclinations towards that one narrow pursuit. So they try to mimic the specialist, and inevitably they fall short. And when they do, they come to the worst possible conclusions. I must be the problem. I must not be built for this. I must not be physically capable. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The issue is not that they are not capable. The issue is that they're trying to force themselves into a system that was never designed for them. A system built around a life they do not live, around responsibilities they do not carry, and around a body that was not shaped for or designed to uphold that kind of training. They are not failing because they are weak. They are failing because they're following a blueprint written for someone and something else entirely. So, what's the solution? If the specialist's model does not fit for the average person, then what does? The answer is not a program. It isn't a set and rep scheme, a method of periodization, or a style of training. It starts with a shift in mindset. It begins with entering a philosophy of generalization, training for capability, capacity, and resilience, not competitions. Because the human body was not designed to be the best in the world at one thing. It was designed to adapt, to respond, to survive and overcome. The purpose of the body is versatility and resilience, not specialization. And no, this isn't some hippy dippy spiritual kumbaya barefoot in the forest nonsense. If we trained exactly as nature intended, we'd all be hunter gatherers sprinting after antelope and dying from tuberculosis at 35. We live in a modern world and we adapt our training to that reality. But the core of it remains. The body is built for broad capability, not a powerlifting total, not a marathon time, not a global ranking, not a comparison to the next social media influencer, not even a PR, but capacity. Strength that carries over to life, endurance that lets us work when we're tired, power that lets us get around and not be restricted, coordination that helps us to learn new skills, mobility that lets us express all of these traits without breaking, and a balance of all of these traits of strength, endurance, power, mobility, coordination, and many others that keep us functional and capable into the late stages of our life. A generalist doesn't chase arbitrary numbers created by institutions, they chase usefulness. And there's a deeper layer to this, a part that a lot of people don't consider. The more domains that you expose your body to, the more domains it can learn in. Just like the mind develops a form of metacognition, which is learning how to learn and understanding itself better, the body can develop its own form of physical or kinesthetic metacognition and intelligence. When we expose ourselves to many sports, many modalities, many rep ranges, many goals, and many philosophies, the body doesn't just become better at more things, it becomes better at learning new things. We gain the ability to be dropped into a new physical pursuit and adapt quickly. Our progression curves steepen. We become harder to break, harder to fatigue, and harder to overwhelm. And that's the strategic shift. Before sets or reps or exercises or programs, we have to start here. Stop training to mimic specialists and professionals. Start training to expend your capacity, your strength, your endurance, your coordination, your adaptability, your athleticism in the true sense of the word. After we focus on shifting our mindset towards a more general style of training, we can discuss some tactics on practical ways to train for broad capability. This is a 30,000-foot view of tactics, strategies, programming decisions, exercise selection, and will in no way, shape, or form be comprehensive or detailed enough. Each of these concepts could be a video in and of themselves, but we can rapid fire them real quick and go over just some bare bones skeletal frame strategies on how we can apply a more generalist training style. Training the entirety of the force velocity spectrum. Understanding the force velocity spectrum or strength speed continuum is going to be a very powerful tool in training a wide variety of modalities and physical characteristics. Basically, this boils down to moving really heavy weight slowly, moving really lightweight quickly, and everything in between. The goal should be over the course of a training period or a year or years to train as many different aspects of the force velocity spectrum and maintain those qualities for as much as possible. Good examples could be powerlifting for the absolute strength side, track and field and plyometrics for the max velocity side, and bodybuilding, Olympic weightlifting, and many other modalities in between. Mobility training, and not mobility training as in stretching. Mobility is the development of end range strength for the sake of resilience. This could be done doing more specific mobility work, such as using isometrics, eccentric work, PNF, FRC, dynamic movement patterns, ballistic training, or simply using strength and power exercises through a full range of motion with the intent of loading the end ranges of the joint with high intensities. This is going to be about moving with control, avoiding injuries, maintaining capability across life, and strengthening the joints and increasing resilience as much as possible. The incorporation of power training. This harkens back to the point that we brought up in the force velocity spectrum. Power is an aspect of the force velocity spectrum, skewing more on the velocity side of things. However, I find it important to bring this point up again because it is one of the most neglected aspects of training, which doesn't make much sense to me because it is incredibly fun, functional, and critical for longevity. This is about focusing on moving light weights quickly or moving heavy weights quickly. The goal is maximal rate of force development. Methods or training styles that can be incorporated in order to develop power could be something like Olympic weightlifting, plyometrics, sprinting, track and field work, and other things. I believe that the end goal for people, if possible, is to be able to sprint fast consistently and pain-free. For a lot of people, this can take a long time to develop this quality, especially because sprinting, jumping, plyometrics, reactivity, rate of force development, these are not qualities that are emphasized in mainstream exercising and training. Therefore, a lot of people are very detrained and deconditioned in this quality, and it can take months or maybe even years, entire macro cycles, in order for the body to become fully accustomed to sprinting. But the individual who is able to sprint fast, hard, often, and without pain is going to be able to express massive amounts of athleticism, mobility, coordination, and strength in a wide variety of other forms of training. Sprinting, in a lot of ways, requires maximal development of physical qualities, and therefore, in my opinion, is one of the kings of physical development as well as proof of resilience and longevity. Incorporating more play in our training. This can come in several forms. One of them is in the participation of sports. This could be an individual sport or a team sport, but any form of training which has positive and negative consequences and requires decision making under pressure allows for the integration of the qualities that are being trained on the back end in the gym. We could view training in a gym as a lab experiment where we refine technique, distill what works and what does not, and then on the field or whatever sport we end up playing, I personally gravitate towards parkour and gymnastics and MMA. It allows us to implement the new skills, whether they are being stronger, being faster, or certain technical aspects, which can be incorporated and integrated into the sport itself. Another option is also simply viewing training as an invitation and approaching it with a more curious mindset. Taking out reps and sets and simply trying to see what the body can do, not from the intent of progressively overloading, but simply exploring what there is, has a huge impact in the relationship that we have with our bodies, the relationship that we have with movement, and often can be a source of great creativity or revelation, which can in turn push us forward leaps and bounds in our training. Anyways, that's it. That's all I got. Each of these concepts, I would like to, at some point down the line, give a dedicated video and go a little bit more about training theory, maybe without a whiteboard if it gets to that point. I hope you got some value from this, and I will be back soon.